Welcome back to the Den of Episodes. I'm Marlo Fox, and this is your cozy little corner of the internet. Grab your mug of coffee or tea, settle into your favorite comfy spot, and let's escape to the Highlands. Hang on to your hats, friends, because this episode is indeed going to be a bumpy ride. Get ready for unexpected family drama, a wedding, a possible school closure, an unexpected kiss, and an announcement that will change the dynamics of our show big time. Before we dive in, I would like to wish my beloved sister Jude a happy birthday. It was a few days ago, and I wanted to make sure she knows how much I love her. Season 2, Episode 6 originally aired February 11th, 2001. The scene opens with Katrina coming down the stairs of her cottage in her robe. In the kitchen, we see Fergal is busy making breakfast. Katrina quickly clears up any confusion by asking how he got in. She says she is headmistress of the school and has to maintain her reputation. However, if she thinks their relationship is a secret, she's mistaken, because then we hear a knock at the door, and it's the mailman with Katrina's mail. And he says he might as well give her Fergal's as well, since he's here most of the time. Then he gives Fergal a big hello, because he's quite sure he's somewhere in the house. Bad news when Katrina opens the mail, though. It's from the Education Authority, announcing the school will be closing at the end of term and busing the children to a larger school in Glen. Katrina looks devastated. At Glen, Duncan is tiptoeing around trying to spy on Archie, who is having a meeting with the local minister. He returns to the kitchen where we find Lexie and Golly, and he has no information for them. But Molly walks in with her big basket of flowers and tells them she overheard the word marriage. Archie walks the minister out and turns to face his eager audience. He announces there is going to be a wedding. You should see the look on Lexie's face. Golly starts congratulating Archie, but he quickly explains he is not the groom. Lexie immediately looks relieved. Archie explains that Glen is hosting a wealthy couple who are searching for the perfect Highland wedding venue. He starts assigning duties to everyone, including Hector, who gets parking detail. Archie hopes that word will get around that Glen is the fashionable wedding location. Molly rushes off, saying she needs to sharpen her secateurs. Duncan announces he needs to iron his kilt as he has been relegated as factotum. Now, if you heard a couple of words there you didn't quite know, my American friends, I will be explaining them later. Golly immediately starts lobbying for bagpipes, but Archie tries to explain that not everyone enjoys them. Katrina arrives looking serious and tells Archie about the school closure. She needs Hector at the upcoming board meeting because he sits on the board of directors. Archie promises they will both be there. Katrina says with sarcasm that the Education Authority is sending a spin doctor, which tells you she's not very optimistic about the meeting. Next, we see Katrina telling Fergal she needs him at the meeting as well. He tells her that he can't because he has to disappear for a few days, and he refuses to explain why. Can you imagine how disappointed and, confused and curious Katrina is? Back at Glen, everyone is lined up outside, awaiting the engaged couple. Nearby, we hear bagpipes, and Archie quickly shuts him down and tells Golly that the guests specifically requested no pipes. I find it interesting that they've already discussed the bagpipe issue before they've even seen the location. But anyway, the couple arrives, and immediately we understand the dynamic. Pamela McAlpine, that's it, talks enough for both of them, while Eric Morton looks delighted to simply be included. Pamela immediately starts flirting with Golly about his kilt and how she can inspect his tackle if the wind picks up. This woman is shameless, and as they go inside, Hector says she has the mind of a midden and a mouth like a Highland bog. After insulting her, he announces that he likes her already. Then comes the moment that changes the entire atmosphere. Lexie walks in carrying a huge tray of tea, coffee, and scones. Pamela says, "Same as always, Lexie." Wait, how does she know her name? Well, Lexie drops the cup she's holding and quietly says, "Hello, Mum." Pamela says she saw the advertisement. That's how they say it in the UK. We would say advertisement. And recognized Glen as the place where Lexie works, so that's why she chose it. Lexie looks mortified. This is not a happy reunion. Lexie storms off upstairs with Archie close behind, trying to smooth things over. He asks Lexie to be civil to Pamela and Eric while they're staying at Glen, but Lexie is not in the mood. She even threatens to pack up and catch a train to Glasgow. In another room, Molly is showing the couple the bridal suite, where she says she and Hector spent their wedding night. She goes on to say there is a strange smell and tries to open a window, but it's jammed shut. She then tries to open the bathroom door, only to have the knob come off in her hand. Glen is not cooperating at all. Over at the church hall, the meeting is about to get underway, and it's a small world because the representative from the Board of Education, or I think they called it the Education Authority, actually went to school with Archie. In the meeting, Katrina and the others argue that the parents can't possibly drive almost 40 miles every day to take their kids to school in Glen Moriston. The representative counters that buses will be provided. Archie steps up and gives a passionate defense of the village school and its importance in the community. Afterward, Katrina tells him he spoke beautifully, but Archie isn't convinced it will help. The minister promises to mention the issue during Sunday's sermon. Then Hector walks out and appears like a storm cloud because he says he hopes they tear the school down entirely, and he goes on to say it will do the kids good to escape all the religious twaddle. The minister looks appalled and tells Archie he will have to find someone else to perform the wedding. Back at Glen Lexie is cleaning up the tea trays when Pamela comes in to talk with her. Lexie makes it clear that she grew up feeling overlooked while her mother focused on men, her appearance, and social life instead of being a mother. Pamela tries to apologize, but then undermines it by insisting Lexie always wanted to be the center of attention. Lexie said she never wanted to be the center of attention, she just wanted to exist. She tells her she spent more time fixing her hair than talking to her. So now we see that underneath Lexie's sharp tongue and confidence is a little girl that felt invisible for years. As she storms out, Archie catches up with her, and he innocently asks what they should serve for the wedding. Without missing a beat, Lexie says they should serve grass because that's what cows eat. Then Archie tries to put out another fire by confronting Hector about insulting the minister. He tells his father he needs to apologize so the wedding can go ahead, but Hector declares he will when the lock freezes over. The next morning, Archie is awoken to the sound of bagpipes. Poor Golly just won't give up. Archie reminds him the guests hate them, but Golly insists they haven't heard them in the proper context. Golly says he takes requests, and Archie says play Far, Far Away, which was actually a 1974 hit in the UK by a band called Slade. Golly stalks off in outrage. Next, we have Pamela in full wedding planner mode. Poor Archie is taking notes as fast as he can. Pamela wants fancy flowers, elaborate food, a tent, and when Archie says in jest that a hot air balloon would be a good send-off, she suddenly wants a hot air balloon. Archie is completely overwhelmed, and at this point, Pamela starts flirting shamelessly with him, even purring if only she were a few years younger. This woman! I don't know why Eric would want to marry her. Later at the hunting lodge, Archie is desperately phoning around trying to find another minister. Molly walks in, and Archie asks whether his father has always disliked the minister. Molly explains it began with Jamie's funeral. Molly mentions how beautiful the fuchsias are, and they will be perfect for the wedding. But Archie disappoints her by telling her that Pamela wants lilies and orchids flown in from Edinburgh. Katrina arrives with the grim news that she's just received a fax. Now, some of you may not remember what a fax sounds like. Please forgive me. I just found the sound effects on the app I use to edit my podcast. I'll try not to get too carried away. But anyway, the fax tells the grim news that the school will be closing despite their pleas at the meeting. Katrina says she needs everyone's help with the campaign, and Archie tells her no one is speaking to him. Katrina asks what's going on, and Archie dodges the question by asking how Fergal is doing these days. Katrina says she would tell him if she could find him. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, Lexie is baking treacle tarts. Eric Morton tells her that he and Pamela first connected over a treacle tart. Eric quietly tries to mend the impossible. He tries to defend Pamela without dismissing Lexie's pain. He says beneath all her glamour, she's a frightened little girl. He urges her to give her mother another chance, because carrying bitterness will only wear you down. That is some sound advice. Here I have to say what a sweetheart Eric Morton is, and Pamela really doesn't deserve him. But just when I've said that, Pamela walks in, and Lexie tells her that Eric is lovely and she is lucky to have him. But Pamela says he is the lucky one. Then she brags about how men are always finding her attractive, including Archie, and Lexie fires back with a remark about Archie and antiques. Pamela goes on to tell Lexie she hopes one day Archie will stoke her aga. And I'll tell you what that is later. Pamela tries to wrap a tape measure around Lexie's waist, and Lexie explodes, saying she is not turning up in some ridiculous frock for Pamela's tacky little circus, though she would happily attend her funeral wearing dancing shoes. Archie walks in and tries apologizing for Lexie's behavior, but Pamela drops a grenade and says if Lexie refuses to attend the wedding, she will have to call the whole thing off. At this point, it looks like Archie's soul briefly leaves his body. Upstairs, Archie finds Lexie sitting on her bed. She tells him her father left when she was 5, and after that, her mother constantly brought different men into their lives. One of her mother's boyfriends made advances toward her, and when she told her mother, she didn't believe her. Lexie left home at 15 and lived on the streets in various places before finding Glen. Molly took her in, and we see why Lexie's so fiercely loyal to her and the estate. Glen isn't just a workplace. It's the closest thing she's ever had to a real home. After hearing all of that, it becomes very difficult to not want Pamela escorted off the property by Hector and his pack of dogs. At the schoolhouse, Katrina's looking over the children's artwork when Fergal walks in. He tells her he had to go to Edinburgh because friends of his are opening a wildlife park in New Zealand, and they want him to work there as a ranger. Katrina asks what that means for Glen. He says his work there is finished and Duncan can manage without him. He says he's never been good at staying in one place, until he met her. He goes on to ask Katrina to leave Scotland and start a new life with him on the other side of the world. Meanwhile, Archie heads off to visit his old school friend from the Education Authority. He proposes ideas like private funding and alternative solutions to keep the school open. During the conversation, he notices an Oxford degree hanging on the wall. Something doesn't add up because he clearly remembers Andrew failing the entrance exam to Oxford. Eventually, Andrew admits he embellished his CV, or resume as we call it. Suddenly, Archie realizes he might have a little leverage. Then back at Glen, Archie finds Katrina to tell her the school will stay open, partially. The older kids will attend the school in Glen, but the village school can remain open for the younger students. Unfortunately, this means Katrina will have to let her other teacher, Maureen, go. Or will she? Then Archie unloads on Katrina about all his troubles at Glen, trying to turn it into a successful business. Katrina reminds him that Glen isn't a venue, it's a home. And we see Archie give that little defeated smile because deep down he knows she's right. Next, Archie finds his father sitting alone in the hunting lodge. Archie asks him why he hates Reverend Mitchell so much. Hector tells him it all goes back to Jamie's funeral. The minister spoke about God's plan, saying Jamie was in a better place. All the while, Hector sat there staring at his son's coffin. He calls the minister an arrogant half-wit for telling a grieving father that his son's death was somehow for the best. Archie remembers that day too. He remembers his mother trying to smile while her eyes were red from crying. Archie softly says Jamie should have been the one running Glen Bogle. Hector looks at Archie and says, "He doesn't do too badly, all things considered." And Archie can't help but smile. Out in the garden, we find Golly raking while Katrina talks through the decision she has hanging over her head. This scene reminds us how much like a father and daughter Golly and she are. Katrina explains the situation, and Golly tells her the school needs her, and even more important, Archie needs her too. He says Archie is stubborn and headstrong, and she's the only person he truly listens to. Katrina says you wouldn't know it, and Golly wisely says that Archie himself doesn't know it. Back inside, Archie is trapped in wedding planner hell, and Pamela's decided she wants a big band. Archie probably needs a shot of medicinal whiskey at this point. He explains to Pamela that he spoke to Lexie and she won't be a bridesmaid. Pamela dismisses Lexie's feelings and says that Lexie is having one of her dramatic poor me moments. And she goes on to say how difficult her life was as a single mother. Archie tries to tell her that forcing her to be a bridesmaid may not be the best way to repair the relationship. He also tries to lower her expectations for the wedding, but Pamela will have none of it. She wants the tent, the band, the balloon, and Lexie, whether she likes it or not. Then she declares her wedding is ruined, and she's calling her lawyer, as she struts back inside in her leopard print pants. Meanwhile, over at the church, Hector finds Reverend Mitchell. At first, the conversation is awkward and formal, but slowly the minister opens up, talking about Jamie's funeral. He admits that when he was younger in the ministry, he believed it was his duty to offer comfort, but he didn't know how, so he repeated phrases he thought people were meant to hear. But when he looks back on it, now he's ashamed. The Reverend apologizes for things he said that day and said he has wanted to apologize for years, but was too embarrassed. Hector reveals that he actually came to apologize. They shake hands and Hector's eyes fill with tears. The Reverend tells him to sit down for a while because church can be a good place to be still. Back at Glen Bogle, Pamela is packing her things while Eric confronts her about the disaster unfolding around them. Namely, her canceling the wedding without even consulting him. Eric tells her she chose Glen Bogle to show off her glamorous life in front of Lexie. Pamela argues that Lexie brings out the worst in her, and Eric points out that maybe that's because Lexie reminds her of her mistakes. He says that when he met her, he thought he was the luckiest man alive, but if he met her today, he'd walk away. Down in the kitchen, Lexie is pulling something delicious out of the oven when Archie comes in and tells her he survived another round of her screaming mother. Then he tells Lexie the worst thing about Pamela is the way she makes Lexie feel about herself. Then he lists all the things Pamela envies. Lexie's independence, her confidence, her beauty. Lexie gets all shy and tells him to stop, and then she changes her mind and says, "Keep going." He tells her that despite everything she went through, she's turned into an amazing person. Lexie smiles and says he's a very sweet man despite all his advantages. Then they hug, and then they kiss. However, this is Monarch of the Glen, so you know something will happen, like Katrina walking in at that very moment. Katrina freezes like her brain has been unplugged. Archie awkwardly asks who she's looking for, and she stammers, "It doesn't matter," and leaves. Later, Lexie goes up to check on her mother and finds her crying over Eric. She sadly says men always eventually leave, but Lexie surprises her with humor by repeating one of Pamela's own sayings about men being like buses, one goes and several more turn up. For the first time all episode, they sound like a mother and daughter and laugh together. Pamela admits she truly loves Eric. Then she reveals the real issue underneath everything. She's jealous of Lexie. Jealous of her youth, her beauty, her confidence, the home she has at Glen Bogle, the people who genuinely care about her. The two of them actually laugh about it, and it feels like Lexie might have made a first step toward letting go of some of the pain. Out on a hillside, Golly is playing the bagpipes again when Eric wanders up and asks if he can give them a try. Golly looks suspicious at first, but it turns out that Eric played in the army. As he plays, Lexie and Pamela walk up carrying treacle tart. Pamela hands it to Eric and says it can glue a broken heart. Over at Katrina's cottage, we see her sitting by a fire outside, burning Archie's photographs. That kiss she saw really got to her. A little later, back at Glen, Molly is rushing around like a chicken with her head cut off, ordering everyone around because the wedding is back on. She tells Archie he will be giving the bride away, but not in that jumper. And I'll tell you Americans what a jumper is later. Hector announces that the Reverend Mitchell says he can come any time they like. Then we have the wedding, and the bride descends the staircase on Archie's arm, and she really does look beautiful. It's all to the tune of Golly's bagpipes. Lexie also looks beautiful in her bridesmaid's dress. Just as the bride and groom share their first kiss, Katrina and Fergal arrive, slipping quietly into the celebration. Eric pays Archie for the wedding, and Archie protests that the amount is far too generous, but Eric tells him that what he gave them was something money can't buy. Lexie and Pamela exchange a hug, and there's no competition or bitterness. It doesn't erase the past, but it does feel like a beginning. Fergal pulls Archie aside and officially gives his notice, explaining that he's accepted the position in New Zealand. Katrina, standing by his side, quietly adds that she's going too, and you can practically see the color drain from Archie's face. Archie stays composed and tells Katrina that she'll be missed, and he hopes to see her before she leaves. And underneath all that politeness is a huge wave of emotion he has no idea what to do with. Then the episode twists the knife one more time. Katrina finds Lexie and tells her to look after Archie once she's gone. She says she hopes the two of them will be happy together. Lexie looks completely confused. She admits she wouldn't mind that happening someday, but only after Katrina leaves, because she refuses to catch him on the rebound. Then you see on Katrina's face that she realizes she got it all wrong. Archie and Lexie aren't a couple. The tragedy is that Archie and Katrina care deeply for each other, but for some reason neither is able to express it. The timing is completely off. The episode closes with Lexie letting out an enormous sigh while the music swells in the background. There's hope, there's sadness, there's unfinished business. All the while, things at Glen are changing, whether anyone is ready for it or not. I have to add that rewatching this episode and knowing that Lorraine Pilkington, who plays Katrina, would soon leave the series, adds an emotional layer to all of her scenes. At the time this aired, Monarch of the Glen was becoming increasingly popular, so her departure at this time was surprising. I read that she married one of the directors from the show, and her first child was born just a few months after this episode aired. That very well may be the reason she was written out of the series. I really do hate to see her go. She's such a strong character, and she and Archie make a good team when facing the various dramas in and around Glen. Before we close out, we have some wonderfully Scottish and British phrases sprinkled throughout the episode. So it's time for those across-the-pond translations. Our first word was secateurs. Molly said that she had to go sharpen her secateurs. S-E-C-A-T-E-U-R-S. And that is the word for gardening or pruning shears. It's a French word, but British gardening vocabulary has a lot of French influence woven into it. I've certainly never heard an American use the word secateurs. When everyone met Pamela, Hector said she had the mind of a midden and the mouth of a highland bog. Midden, spelled M-I-D-D-E-N, is basically a garbage heap, and bog is a swampy terrain. So he was saying she had the mind of a garbage pile and the mouth of a swamp. Next we have slagging off. I don't remember where that was used, but it was definitely used in the episode. Slagging off is insulting, mocking, or talking bad about someone. A new segment I'd like to add to the Den of Episodes is the Marlowe Fox tea ratings. And I will rate each episode from 1 to 5 cups of tea. This episode absolutely earns 5 cups. It was packed full of big storylines. We had a wedding, the drama with Lexie's mother, and the school closure, 2 characters moving to New Zealand, Hector's lingering anger at the minister, and if that isn't enough, Archie and Lexie kiss. This episode also brings out many emotions. I felt angry with Lexie's mother for the way she had treated her, and I couldn't stand her narcissistic personality. I felt sadness at the thought of Katrina leaving, and I also felt happy with the Pamela and Lexie situation when they made steps toward reconciliation. Oh, and don't forget the scene with Hector and the minister as they talked over the hurt and embarrassment from that long ago funeral. I thoroughly enjoyed this episode. We had kilts, bagpipes, and treacle tart. It was very atmospheric. And our tea blend for this week is a sturdy Highland blend with wedding cake on the side and just a tiny bit of heartbreak. As always, don't forget to like, subscribe, or leave a comment. I got some really great comments last week that made my day. I told you they would. And if you want to reach out to me, I'm at the den of episodes at yahoo.com. You could listen to that song I told you about, Far, Far Away by the band Slade. It's from 1974, and I did listen to it, and it sounds very British, which makes me like it. Anyway, I'm Marlowe Fox, and until next time, keep the kettle on and the episodes rolling.